Hey everyone. Now, I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while since I got this room set up. This is the first time I've done a video where I'm sitting in front of the camera with the new room. I tried to set it up as good as I could to make it look alright for you, but I wanted to talk about the DCEU movies, all the ones that have come out so far, and from judging how things went with Justice League, could very well be the last of them, although I know Aquaman's happening apparently, and maybe Man of Steel 2, but I'm doing this all in one take, so I have to not swear and not do what I usually do when I'm filming something. Like most of you guys who film stuff will know, you'll start filming, you'll go to speak, you'll screw it up, you'll swear, and then you start again, and so on and so on. Can't do any of that in this video. I have to get it right all the time. So got my water, keep myself lubricated, hydrated, and we'll start with Man of Steel. Uh-oh, I chose the sparkling water by mistake. That means burps. I can't do that. Alright, so I will be doing a MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe video after this one. Don't know how quick that one will be up because there's a lot more Marvel films to talk about, and I want to do them all in one video like I am with the DC stuff here. Now obviously the Dark Knight trilogy by Christopher Nolan isn't part of the DCEU, it's just these films here, so that's why I'm not going to be talking about those in this video. But we'll start with Man of Steel. And there it is there. This is the UK version. Nice slip cover. But anyway, who cares about that? Let's just talk about the film. So, I really like Man of Steel. I think it's a great movie. I think Henry Cavill makes a great Superman and a great Clark Kent too. I will say that I don't think he's as good as the Clark Kent side of things as Christopher Reeve was, and I know there's been a lot of other people who played Superman as well. Dean Cain comes to mind, the guy from Smallville. I never really watched Smallville, to be honest, but I did see little bits here and there growing up. But yeah, definitely growing up, Christopher Reeve was the Superman that I knew, and I was really excited. One thing I'll say about Man of Steel is the trailers for this film. If you pause this video now, open up another window, and just watch, even though you might have seen them in the past, probably, of course you have, but just watch those first 3 Man of Steel trailers again, because each one of them in their own right is a work of art. I mean, really, the feels, like the music, the way they constructed those trailers, I had high hopes, you know. I mean, wow. Especially, I think trailer 3 was the one where we heard Hans Zimmer's score for the first time for the Superman theme, and it was amazing. I must have watched that trailer 20 times, I don't know, but I love the Man of Steel trailers, and I love the film too. I think Fiora, you know, was amazing. She stole the show. Every scene that she's in, especially when she's fighting or wasting people, you know, she's just amazing. And you know, Hot Toys, who make these 1/6 scale incredible figures. I wish they had done Fiora. There is a version of her you can get from another company, but it's not really official. It's kind of a third party, not officially licensed figure. But anyway, Fiora, I forget the lady's name who played her now. I did know it, but it's been a while since I had to say it, so it's gone out of my head now. But she was perfect. So confident in her eyes. Like she's not the biggest woman. But the way she delivered every line and the look in her eyes when she did it, and when she was fighting people, everything was convincing. It wasn't one of those things where you could tell that there was a stunt double and CGI, you know, for the major fight stuff. I just thought she was fantastic. I think Michael Shannon as General Zod was a stroke of genius casting, and Kevin Costner as you know, his dad, his Earth dad, was really cool choice as well. The only scene in Man of Steel that I guess I would say might be a bit silly is when the hurricane or the tornado, you know, takes Kevin Costner's father away, and you know, Clark Kent is going to save him, but his dad says no because he doesn't want him to expose himself, and doesn't. that's the thing. You could say it's silly, but when you think about it, it makes total sense. He loves his son. He's his son to him, and he knows what he is capable of, and he knows that if the world finds out what he's capable of, his life would be over. He'd be, you know, I mean, not that Earth science, you know, laboratory would be able to hold Superman, even at a young age. You know, he would have been able to just burst free and get it, you know, but he'd always be on the run. He'd always be scrutinized, and, you know, so it makes sense. He was willing to be swept away with the tornado to keep his son's life intact as long as possible. So it's not silly, really, I guess, when I think about it. When I do think about it, it makes total bloody sense, but there you go. Now, the third act of Man of Steel, where Superman and Zod level Metropolis, basically, and God knows how many people died, supposedly, in that third act in the city. But he'd only been Superman a very short time, and all of a sudden he's up against General Zod. Not just another Kryptonian who's got a chip on their shoulder, but General Zod, the guy. Just dead focused on his goal. Nothing's going to stop him, and that's who he ends up fighting for the first time as Superman. And it just happens to be that the fight takes place in Metropolis, and a great deal of destruction takes place. And a lot of people, when they saw this film, you know, they just said that the third act was just, you know, oh, buildings collapsing, it's just, you know, it's not very good. And you know, you can't win with people. I mean, we'll get to that with the rest of these, but you really can't win. I mean, if they hadn't have gone that route and there hadn't have been a massive fight at the end of the third act and the city was destroyed, I'm sure people would be saying, you know, the complete opposite. You know, if Superman and General Zod were to fight in a city, it would have been totally leveled, and why didn't they show that? Well, they did show it. And then there was a lot of discussion from people on the internet about, you know, the consequences of those actions, and what are the people of the world, you know, who's he gonna answer to? Who's Superman gonna answer to for all this destruction and death? And I was curious about that myself, and I guess we'll just move on now to Dawn of Justice. I'm not calling it Batman v Superman because that's a stupid title. It never should have been called Batman v Superman. That was a stupid decision. It should have just been called Dawn of Justice. That would have been just fine. Just the whole idea of Batman v Superman. You know who would win that, really. Superman, just flick him into this another galaxy. So here we have a very nice version of Dawn of Justice. I do have it on just regular Blu-ray as well, but I was in HMV one day and I saw this along with this version of Wonder Woman, and I had to get it. It's just really, really nice and classy. Now, Batman v Superman. I did it, I called it Batman v Superman. Anyway, it's the Ultimate Edition. This is the Ultimate Edition, the version we should have seen in the first place. Warner Brothers, the people above Zack Snyder, you know, did what they did. They were greedy, and I guess they wanted to cram in as many showings as they could into the cinema. So they cut a lot of the film out, and the reviews were bad, mainly. You know, I mean, there were some people on the internet who really reveled in slagging this film off, and I'm just going to name names on this one because, you know, I don't care, screw it. Angry Joe was, I used to be a big Angry Joe fan. I remember watching his Saints Row interview where he was doing the Drop That Dookie song. I love that guy until he started talking about Dawn of Justice. I was going to splice in clips of the parts of his reviews that pissed me off the most, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the people who make these films, the big people who make decisions about these films, they are paying attention to the internet and what people are saying. And for all we know, it's people like Angry Joe and his reaction to this movie that ended up making this film, you know, the Justice Buddies instead of the Justice League. What Zack Snyder would have brought to us, you know, had circumstances not been what they were. I mean, Justice League, we'll get to that at the end, but it's a damn shame. And I do think that the massive reaction from this movie, from the people on the internet and YouTube and social media in general, did affect what we got in Justice League. And right, so Dawn of Justice, where to start with this one? I guess I'll just talk about the first time I saw this at the cinema, the cut version. I loved everything the first time, apart from Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I thought I mean, I was literally cringing. I mean, you say you cringe about things, but I remember about 3 moments when he was doing his thing on the big screen. I literally kind of sank into my chair and it was like, oh God, just some really, really cringy moments. Then the second time I saw it at the cinema, I went and saw it with someone else, someone from work who I was trying to convince about something, and we ended up going to see it at like 9 AM in the morning after our shift. So I do the night shift. And the second time I saw it, I wasn't as bothered by Jesse Eisenberg. I started to get it. I mean, he's just a nutcase, and people who are mentally impaired or fractured would be a bit twitchy and stuff. But you know, I don't know. All I can say is over time I've actually grown to not like his take on Lex Luthor Jr., but it just doesn't bother me, and I get what he was going for. Jesse Eisenberg himself said he'd never watched the movie once he played the part, and can't remember his reasons why, but yeah, I didn't mind Jesse Eisenberg in the end. Now, as far as Batman first turning up in this movie, the first Zack Snyder take on Batman that we saw, I absolutely loved it. I remember when Ben Affleck was cast, or he was announced that he was going to be the new Batman, I was not happy about that. I remember the first thing I did was leave. I did it on purpose, like knowing that it would be quite comedic, and I even remember Ben Affleck was on a talk show shortly after, and he literally said one of the first things he saw online was someone left a comment when it was announced, just in capital letters, "No!" And I actually did that. I'm not the one that he was talking about. I'm sure a lot of people did the exact same "no" comment, but that really kind of shook me up. I was like, oh God, I hope it wasn't my comment that he saw. The reason I wasn't too keen on Ben Affleck playing Batman, or that announcement, was because I grew up watching the Kevin Smith movies like Clerks and Chasing Amy and Mallrats and Dogma and all that stuff, and Ben Affleck was always kind of a jerk in the films that I saw him in. I hadn't seen Gone Girl or what's that one, Argo, is it? Say the wrong name? But he's done a lot of great films, and The Town, that was amazing, and he's a great director. But like I said, my knowledge of Ben Affleck was very much him playing the douchebag kind of jock kind of guy, and I just grew to dislike him through his portrayals of characters in movies. But I will honestly say, hand on heart, as much as I wasn't keen on him playing Bruce Wayne / Batman, I did know straight away that makes total sense, and he probably will do a very good job, because he's got the look, he's got the chin, he's got the stubble, he's got the height, he's got the build. I knew that it was, you know, it made sense, and that it was probably going to kill it. I just wasn't happy it was him. I didn't know who else to suggest, though. I mean, if you had have asked me at the time, like, who should play Batman, then I'd be like, I don't know, to be honest. After Christian Bale in the Dark Knight trilogy, it's pretty tricky, because I think he did a really good job, especially in Batman Begins. I think Christian Bale, don't mean to talk about the Nolan trilogy right now, but honestly, the way Christian Bale played both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and everything in between in Batman Begins, I don't think that's ever going to be beaten. I really do look at his performances as Batman as very separate things in that trilogy. Can't fault him in Batman Begins. In The Dark Knight, it's very much overshadowed by the genius of Heath Ledger, but still good. And then The Dark Knight Rises, there's just so many things about that film that bug me. We'll talk about that some other time. If you want to know my feelings about that trilogy, let me know in the comments, and that will push me to maybe do that video. Otherwise, it's just maybe not worth doing. But so, Ben Affleck as Batman in Dawn of Justice. I love his suit. The way he looked, you know, the grey and the black, how thick, and, you know, just like the Dark Knight Returns comics, the graphic novel. I love the cowl. It's probably my second favourite bat suit now. Batman Begins being my favourite bat suit and film, or whatever, favourite everything. And the armoured version of Batman and the nightmare version of Batman, God, it's all in this one film. Yeah, I love the regular suit, just his normal Batman suit, like I say, fantastic. The nightmare sequence, I think, is probably the best scene in this film, although that is debatable. There's some great ones in there. And the armoured suit, very cool, very true to those, you know, Frank Miller comics. Now, one thing about this film, the one scene that I genuinely kind of can agree with people, and I'm not going to say the Martha scene. That's fine. I have no problem with that scene. It makes total sense to me because I'm an idiot. What else is in here? There's lots of amazing artwork in this. If you haven't seen this, if you haven't got this, if you like the film, try and hunt this version down. The Digibook, I think we call it. But yeah, the scene where they're about to fight. Batman's on the ground. He's staring up at the sky, waiting for Superman, and then Superman appears, and then he lands, all aggressive. Why? I mean, he doesn't want to fight him. It's very clear when Lex Luthor is telling him, your mum's going to die if you don't kill Batman. It's pretty clear that Superman doesn't want to go along with this. So when he turns up and he's in the sky, even his body posture, everything about the way he is in the sky when he's looking at Batman says, I want to be here, I want to fight you. And, you know, it's I guess Zack Snyder's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because someone probably made him call the film Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice underneath, which is probably what he wanted to call it. That's what I would have called it. So they said, you know, for the trailers, we need to let people know that these two are going to fight. So when Superman's in the sky, he needs to look ready to fight. So then he lands, and then he tries to explain to Batman what's going on, but he doesn't do a very good job. And the one moment, like I'm saying, that doesn't feel right at all is when they go face to face. You know, he says, you don't understand, and then Batman gets right up in his face and says, I understand, and then he pushes him away. That moment, that shot where they're face to face like that, it's just not good. And it wouldn't go like that. And all Superman had to do, Lex Luthor couldn't hear him, he's all the way across the city. All Superman had to do in a logical world, I mean, I gather that Superman and Batman, they're both quite intelligent people, they'd have to be. All Superman had to do was just hover in the sky above Batman and just quickly say, Lex Luthor has set us up. He's told me that if I don't come here and fight you, he's going to kill my mother. Okay, now, Batman can't do jack to Superman while he's up in the sky like that, so he could have just said that, roll the dice, maybe Batman wouldn't listen, but I don't see how he couldn't, because if he just says those very words to him, something would have to be, oh, hang on a minute, Lex Luthor? He's got a mother? What? So anyway, yeah, but I do love the fight scene, apart from the bits I mentioned. The actual fight is really cool, and there's some moments in there, especially the moment where Batman carries Superman and drops him down, and he smashes down onto those pile of radiators. That's really harsh. And in the uncut version, he actually cries out in pain when he hits them. In the cut version, he doesn't. But that was the moment in the cinema, and every time I watch it since, when Batman's pulling him. Once he lands on the radiators, and the score's kind of like ethereal, kind of quiet but dark, is kind of just in the background, and he's pulling him off the radiators, and he's all just like getting dragged. That's genius right there. That's some amazing. That's right out of a comic book, and it looks right out of a comic book, and it's just, you know, someone said in a video about, I think the video was called Why You're Wrong About Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, but it's a good video. If you should check that out if you haven't seen it. It makes some really good points. But someone says in that video, you know, like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we would have gone crazy about this film. It's just, we're spoiled now. We really are. I mean, ever since ever since 2005, when Batman Begins came out, it changed everything. And then we got 2005 Batman Begins, then 2008, like 3 years later, we got The Dark Knight and Iron Man. And then from then on, it's just been, I don't know how many comic book movies we get a year now, maybe 4 films a year, maybe more, maybe less, but it seems like that. We get a hell of a lot of movies. So I really like Dawn of Justice. I think Wonder Woman's introduction was pretty cool. She really does kind of steal that scene where she turns up for the first time as Wonder Woman and saves Batman from getting obliterated by Doomsday. I think Doomsday looked great in the film. A lot of people, again, Angry Joe, oh my god, yeah, he wasn't happy about that, but I think Doomsday was handled as well as it could be. I really wish I knew more about why things were put into Dawn of Justice. A lot was crammed in. But I do have a feeling that maybe Zack Snyder didn't have quite as much control as we like to think he did. But I really, apart from Sucker Punch, which is the one Zack Snyder film I remember trying to watch years ago, and I couldn't get more than 15 minutes into it, I had to turn it off. I think it was because of the music choices in the film. The soundtrack was very obvious and very I don't know, the film seemed like it was a big MTV music video to me, so I wasn't digging it, so I had to turn it off after a few minutes. But like the remake of Dawn of the Dead, Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, what else has he done? What else has Zack Snyder done? I don't know, but I like a lot of his stuff, and I think he's as everyone said, he's an incredible visual director. He knows how to do that, and I don't think he's as bad as the other aspects of it as people make out. But that's just me. Let me just take a little sip of my water here because I'm getting dry now. Oh, it's fizzy. So yeah, Superman in Dawn of Justice. Let's talk about him briefly. I like. Well, one of the main things I remember people bitching about the most with Dawn of Justice and Superman was how mopey he was. But come on, you wanted to see the repercussions of what happened to Superman after the events at the end of Man of Steel, and what happened to the city he lives in, or would eventually live in, Metropolis. And we did see that, and it was handled very, very realistically, like almost too realistically. The government came down on him. The people of the world came down on him. There were still people that looked up to him and worshipped him. Obviously, we see that in the film, but there was a hell of a lot more people who wanted his head on a spike for everything that happened in the past. And, I remember a lot of people saying, people I knew were like, oh, it's not my Superman and all this stuff. It's like, well, your Superman was from the 70s. The world was a very different place in the 70s. I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 1980, so I don't know much about the 70s, other than the music kicked ass. But of course it's not going to be your Superman. This is the modern world. The world we live in now is so harsh in all kinds of ways. The people are harsher, the times are harsher, the elements, everything's harsher. So that's the way they went. They treated it realistic. Like, what would it be like for Superman to exist in this world we live in today? And that's what they showed in Dawn of Justice, and I really liked that. And it was one of the things I liked most about it, to be honest. I like the darkness of this film. I love, because that's the way I think it should be, really, when it comes to DC films. All the DC stuff I've ever read growing up, even the animated stuff I watched, the Batman animated series in the 90s, at least the first 2 seasons, were very dark. And that's how I think it should be with, Batman in particular. But if you're going to put Batman and Superman in the same film, it shouldn't be light and fluffy like this over here. So what else can I say, really? I like the way they handled the rest of the continuing Superman story in Dawn of Justice. Very realistic, and that was very interesting to see. I particularly like the moment where there's like a montage of Superman helping people, and the people on the news report are talking about what he's doing and the effects of what he does and the consequences of his actions, and do we really need him, and the fact that he exists, what that calls into question in people's minds, what else is out there. And it's deep, and especially the uncut version, the version we were supposed to see in the first place, Zack Snyder's finished film. I think it's really, really good. I really like Dawn of Justice, and I really like Man of Steel pretty much equally. And again, the nightmare sequence when Batman has the vision of the future, that one take, I'm sure there's trickery going on, but when you watch Batman, just focus on him. It is one long take. There's no like cheeky little snips where it turns into a CG Batman or anything like that. One long fight sequence where he just, amazing. When I first saw that in the cinema, I think someone got up and left. I think it was a mum with a kid. I remember once Batman started taking people out and he shot a few people, I'm pretty sure, I didn't turn around, but I just heard someone and a little person with them leave. So maybe someone, that's probably too much for some people, but the whole Batman killing people in Dawn of Justice, again, it's set in a realistic world. In a realistic world in America, a lot of bad guys have guns, so you need to be prepared for that. And in a realistic take, Batman probably as a last resort might have to shoot a few fools. So there is that. So if I think of anything else, I'll come back to it. And I hope I'm not boring you guys. I am trying to do this all in one take. I'm not used to speaking on camera like this. I'm usually behind the camera filming things and reviewing figures and stuff and statues. So bear with me if I'm not very good at this. So we come to Suicide Squad. The trailers made this look awesome. And I think we all remember that. The Bohemian Rhapsody trailer and everything else. This, you know, they made it look amazing. But then apparently they got the people who made the trailers to re-edit the movie. Was it David Ayer? Is that his name? I'd seen his previous work. I remember, God, yeah, I can't remember the titles right now. Was it the one with Christian Bale where he comes back from the army and he wants to, he's living in LA and he goes out and does a whole bunch of bad things. And but yeah, I've seen the other one with Jake Gyllenhaal and the other cop where it's like you just follow them around where they're just doing their police officer stuff in LA. But I've seen all of David Ayer's stuff. Pretty damn good. Oh, and of course Fury. That's a great film. So something definitely felt weird when I was watching this in the cinema before I found out that it was re-edited by people who do trailers. So it didn't feel like a David Ayer film at all. The first half hour of the film was basically just a big music video. It's basically absolute trash. But I will say there are elements in this film that were really good. I think Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn was amazing. And you know, regardless of how I felt about the film, I bought all of the Hot Toys figures of Harley Quinn just because she looked incredible. She sounded amazing. The voice she had for Harley Quinn was perfect, and the way everything, the mannerisms, the little subtle little things in her face and her eyes when she talked to people, just she absolutely killed it. I really hope Gotham City Sirens happens. I remember after this came out, they were saying that David Ayer and Margot Robbie were getting together and she was going to be a producer and that they were going to make Gotham City Sirens. So Harley Quinn, Catwoman, my favourite, and Poison Ivy. It'd be amazing to see that happen. I don't know what's happening with that. At the time of me filming this video, we have no news on that whatsoever. But yeah, so Margot Robbie, fantastic. Will Smith was the other saving grace in this. I always liked Will Smith. I grew up watching The Fresh Prince when I was in my teens, early teens. What's her name? Cara Delevingne as Enchantress. One of the major things that made this film just turn to poo. Just awful. If you've ever seen her being interviewed, she really has a stick up her ass. Joel Kinnaman, is that him? Yeah. The guy who played Rick Flag, never been keen on this guy. There's just some actors and actresses sometimes. I think you're just supposed to call them all actors now, apparently. But yeah, him, the guy who played Rick Flag, couldn't stand him. Now, what's his name? Jai Courtney, the guy who played Boomerang. Never liked him in anything. I think that started when I saw that god-awful Die Hard film that he starred in. I really didn't like him, but he was great in this. So Jai Courtney, just to show you, you know, he ain't watching this. I'm just saying. Turned it all around with this one. I actually quite like the guy now. So there you go. So yeah, there are other characters. Killer Croc didn't work for me. Who else was in this? Oh, Jared Leto was the Joker. Now, that's an interesting one because he apparently they filmed enough of Jared Leto as the Joker when making this film to make a separate Joker movie, and in the end they only used about maybe under a quarter of what was actually shot, and Jared Leto was obviously peed off about that. He was not happy, you could tell. I remember the interviews and the what do they call those things where they do all the interviews and different people come in and they have to just sit there and do interview after interview after interview. Press junkets or whatever they call it, I don't know. But anyway, he was visibly, obviously not very happy about what had happened to this film and his part he played in it. I didn't really like him at first, and I couldn't really care less, to be honest. It's one of them ones where I just, you know, I don't really feel anything. I don't know what to say because it just didn't make me feel anything, really. I did get all of his Hot Toys figures because I do actually quite like his look in the film. It's more the words that came out of his mouth in the movie, but then he didn't write the script, he didn't write his lines, he just delivered the lines as best as he could. It's not his delivery that's bad, it's the words he's saying that are cringy to me, and that's not his fault. Again, that is the script, not him. But the way he looked and the way he acted, I didn't have any problem with that. It was really the script and you know, stuff like that. But I got the figures. I think they're some of Hot Toys' best figures. If you don't know what Hot Toys are, just get into my channel and scroll down a bit, you'll find the 1/6 scale figures from this movie. They are ridiculously realistic looking. If you're not familiar with these things, check it out. It's quite remarkable. So yeah, Jared Leto as the Joker. I would have liked to have seen more of him to get a real sense of what he was actually like in the part. I think what we actually ended up with was just a tiny fraction of what was shot. So it just doesn't feel fair to judge him too harshly, because I don't know. Batman's in it briefly. His scenes are pretty good. The scene with Deathstroke, nope, not Deathstroke, Deadshot. That was pretty cool. And the scene with the Joker and Harley Quinn in the car, and then he lands on top. Very brief, really nothing to it. So yeah, I mean, like I say, things that I like about it: Harley Quinn, great. Deadshot, great. Joker, would have liked to have seen more. Everyone else, pretty much terrible, especially Cara Delevingne. Please go away. We'll pop that there. And then we come to Wonder Woman. Kind of overhyped, I think, to be honest. If you've seen the... let me move this out of the way. If you've seen the Collider top 50 superhero films of all time, this came in ahead of Batman Begins. Batman Begins was number 14, and anyone from Collider, if you're watching this, just shame on you. It should have been number 1. Batman Begins is the best superhero film of all time, and that's just the truth. It's not my opinion, it's a fact. So, anyway, if you can hear my dog Ruby sniffing and stirring in the background, she's literally lying in a bed right behind the tripod, so keep it down, Ruby. Trying to be professional here. One take. Alright, so Gal Gadot as, Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. Yeah, the reason I say it's overhyped, people really rave about this film. There's one scene in this film that I think every film, needs at least one scene that literally can make you emotional, can make the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, give you the chills. It's so good. And that scene, you'll probably know already what I'm going to say, but the No Man's Land scene in this film took it to another level. And if it wasn't for that scene, I don't know if this film would be as highly regarded as it is. That scene is amazing. The score is what does it really. But the way you get to see what's going on around them first, like how harsh that environment was and how death was right round the corner. But basically that scene when she, disrobes and we see her in the gear for the first time, and she steps up the ladder and the music kicks in, and yeah, amazing. I've watched it before the film came out to buy. I watched that scene on YouTube when it came up a lot. Just think it's amazing. And the rest of the film's great. I'm saying it's overhyped because it is a bit overhyped. I'm not saying it's a bad film, it's a great film. It's one of, the DCEU's top ones. Some people would say it's their best one. I personally, I don't know, kind of maybe lean a bit more towards Dawn of Justice. It's got a lot of entertainment, and this is a nice long 3-hour film. You can just sit back and watch this in like 3 chunks, spread it out over the course of like 2 days and just get lost in this world. It's really cool. But yeah, the casting in this was really good. I think Gal Gadot certainly proved everyone wrong. I don't think she's the only one who could play Wonder Woman. People make out like she's the only one who can do it now. It's not the case, trust me. It could have been any number of other people, just happened to be her. I wasn't really on board when they first showed her as Wonder Woman in pictures before we even saw her in Dawn of Justice. Wasn't really convinced. She didn't look, my idea of an Amazon from watching, the animated movies really, like Justice League stuff and the actual Wonder Woman animated film from 2004, 5, something like that, I don't know. But yeah, she just wasn't thick enough. Like, Amazonian women have like thighs like this, like tree trunks, like they could crush you in their thighs. And even though she did bulk up and get incredibly toned, still not quite there, but she did kill it. She did a great job, and I like the fact that she has her actual accent in the film, because Wonder Woman, I guess she does sound just American in every other thing, but it was really cool that she sounded like, I think she's Israeli or from Israel. She sounds like that as well, so that was actually really cool. made her sound like she was from somewhere else, like she should sound. But the outfit's really cool, the Wonder Woman outfit, and every other outfit she wears. I love the black kind of cloaked, hooded thing that she wears as well. The blue dress that I'm looking at on here from that scene is pretty cool. The bit where the sword is down the back, it's like no one says anything. It's, you know, okay. But yeah, great film. I ain't going to talk too much about it because, I don't know, my heart's not really with this one as much as it is with some of the other ones. But I do really like this film and I rate it quite highly. I give this an 8 out of 10, you know. And then that just brings us to Justice League, or Justice Friends, as it turned out in the end. A lot of meddling with this one. Zack Snyder directed Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, and he's credited as directing Justice League. However, it's come to light that it wasn't just the fact that there was the tragedy with Zack Snyder's daughter who took her own life, really sad. Apparently, it's a rumour, I don't know if it's actually confirmed, but it's come from quite high reliable sources that apparently Warner Brothers actually got rid of Zack Snyder before that happened with his daughter. And there were rumours that his cut of this movie was unwatchable, and they called in Joss Whedon, you know, who made Avengers and Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, and the Buffy series, which I never watched. He came in and brought the tone up a bit, made it more jokey, more fun, and like coming back to the whole Angry Joe reaction in his multiple videos on Dawn of Justice. Kind of, there's a part of my brain that's like, trust your instincts. If your brain's telling you, if your gut's telling you that the big wigs at Warner Brothers watch people's YouTube reviews to get a sense, why wouldn't they? I mean, that's the audience. They must watch people's reviews. They see him freaking out, you know, in his armored Batman mask going, "Why did you do this to my movie?" And we probably end up with this after something like that, and this is just, oh man, it's such a departure from what Zack Snyder set up in the first 2 films. These 2 have a very similar tone. They're quite dark, realistic takes on superheroes, and then this is the 3rd one. This is the trilogy, and it ends, it just doesn't link up with these 2 at all. This is over here and they're over there, and there's this gap in between. It just doesn't feel like the next one after this. God, there's some awful moments. I've actually downloaded the Ultimate Fan Edition, or the Ultimate Fan Cut of Justice League, which came out online. I don't know if it's still available, but the day it was finally released, I did download it straight away. The first thing I did, because the Ultimate Fan Edition of this film is a lot better, but it still kept that god-awful cover of Everybody Knows. I don't know who sings it. I remember hearing it in Natural Born Killers at the end of the film the first time. I'm pretty sure that's the original version of Everybody Knows. But that song in the opening credits to this film is such a bad choice. It really puts me in a bad mood. So I had to go in, I got hold of the Ultimate Fan Edition, put it into Movie Maker, split that bit, took out the Everybody Knows song, and I put the music from, I think it was trailer 2 from Man of Steel, not the Hans Zimmer one. I think it was actually music from Gladiator that they used in trailer 2, the Man of Steel trailer, and I used that in the opening credits for Dawn of Justice in my personal version of the movie. So what is? I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest. Let's talk about the cast. The guy who plays the Flash, I don't know his name, I've forgotten it right now. Oh wait, it's right here in front of me. Ezra Miller. He plays the Flash. He's pretty funny. He needed to be. At least one of the characters in the Justice League needed to bring the mirth, and I think he did well. None of his stuff makes me cringe. Almost. A little bit, but not quite. He's fine. Aquaman, Jason Momoa, yeah, pretty cool, you know, pick for the role. He suits it, he looks the part, and he did well in the film. None of his scenes, you know, ticked me off. I thought they were all pretty damn good. Who else we got? Cyborg. Who played Cyborg? What was his name? Ray Fisher? I think that's him. He was alright. Just, oh, that's another thing. When Superman, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but you should have seen it by now. When Superman dies in this, I saw this preview night on a Thursday. It was out everywhere on Friday, but I saw it on Thursday. I don't know much about Cyborg. I never have. I think Justice League was the first time I've seen him in a few animated DC films over the years, but he's not a character that really, you know, resonates with me. That's the word I keep using. Then Wonder Woman was back again. Gal Gadot. She was alright in this again. Nothing really stands out about her for me in this film. Yeah, I don't know what to say, man. This film is just kind of crap, to be honest. Even the Ultimate Fan Edition that I've downloaded, which basically was more about replacing all the music, because the Danny Elfman stuff in this film, apart from maybe the bit where the Flash was spiraling down trying to get to Wonder Woman to ping her sword back into her hand, that part of music I think suited the scene really well. But I remember being in the cinema seeing Justice League, and when it first started up and the DC logos are coming up, I was thinking to myself, why am I not being blasted with atmosphere right now? Why is there not some, like, why is the whole cinema not shaking with like subwoofer bass, just like, you know, because this is Justice League. This is the one we've been building up to for all this time. DC is a different thing. It's darker, it's thicker, it's meatier, it's stone, it's rock. And such a weak soundtrack in this film, man. It's just really quiet and nothing. There's no drums and there's no, you know, Man of Steel soundtrack. We'll come back to that in a minute, actually, because the Man of Steel soundtrack is killer. Hans Zimmer and everyone else that he worked with. There's a track on here where there's like 20 different drummers from bands, and one of them is Danny Carey from Tool, and they're all playing drums and percussion on this soundtrack, and it's absolutely amazing. And the fan version of this has a lot of this soundtrack and this soundtrack replacing Danny Elfman stuff, which really does help. And also the fan edition takes out a lot of the stupid jokes, like, you know, the bit where we first see Lois Lane and Superman's mum talking in the office or whatever, and it starts with that scene where the woman's talking about how her husband's been abducted by aliens, and it's really, really cringy, and it's blatantly some scene Joss Whedon did, I'm assuming. And it's almost, when I see this version of the film and I see that scene with the woman being interviewed on the news, I think to myself, didn't anyone else figure out that someone's trying to sabotage this film? Because there's no way everyone involved in making a film like this, the editors, the director, the people that approve things, the test audiences, all that stuff, how did that scene make it in? It's friggin' bad, like really bad. So the fan edition of this film cuts out most of that, and you just see her on the TV screen with the tagline, woman's husband abducted by aliens. You don't get to hear her speak, thank God. And the horrible cringy moment where Superman and Batman are talking in the third act, where Superman says something about liking me to Batman, and Batman's like, I don't not like you, or something stupid like that. That's been taken out. The bit where the Flash fell on Wonder Woman, he's lying on top of her, that's been taken out. And a lot of the cool moments from the trailers building up to the release of the film that weren't in the movie in the end have been put back in, like the bit where Cyborg turns to Batman and says, I didn't think you were real. Batman says, I'm real when it's necessary. That's back in the fan version of the movie. I think I downloaded it from a site called Mega or something, so just Google Justice League Ultimate Fan Edition, and I'm pretty sure you'll find it. Apparently there's more than one version of the fan edition of this film. There's like another 2 versions on the way. What else to say? Just pretty much just bad. And I don't know where the DCEU is going to be heading after Justice League, because it didn't do well at the cinema at all. It really did not. So that's it. I hope I haven't forgotten to mention anything. I hope you've been able to understand me, and this video hasn't been absolutely terrible to watch. Again, I'm not used to doing these sitting in front of the camera videos. Oh, by the way, did you see my awesome Street Hawk t-shirt? Let me just represent. See that? Street Hawk, 1980s TV show, like Knight Rider and Airwolf, but with a bike, set in LA. Just amazing. So there you go, and the video is called Ranking the DCEU films. So let me just rank these in order of the best ones to the worst ones. So it's a bit of a tough call putting something at number 1, because honestly, I think number 1 could go to any one of these 3. You know, Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, and Wonder Woman. I personally, it's tough. It's really tough. Alright, do you know what? I was going to say Dawn of Justice number 1, but I think maybe, because I think Man of Steel as a whole is just a safer bet for number one. There's really not much in here that I can complain about. The cast was great. The action sequences are incredible. It doesn't feel rushed. It's not rushing to get to the action. I love seeing Clark Kent as a young boy, as a teenager, going through what he went through. The bit where the guy is kind of bullying him in the bar when he works in the bar for a little while, and he throws the cup at the back of his head, and you feel it, man, because we've all had moments where people were being dicks, and we think he's got to lose his temper, he's got to fight back a little bit, but when that guy leaves the bar, the one who was being a dick, and he sees what's happened to his truck, the trees just like stabbed through it. Oh man! And the drums suddenly come in underneath. The soundtrack is so important in a film. It's half the experience. Sound is half of the whole thing. That's why the Danny Elfman score in Justice League just did not work and hurt the movie. But yeah, I'll put Man of Steel at number one for the DCEU. It could be a tie between these two really, but I have to put one at each spot. So for number two, I'd go Dawn of Justice. It's got its little problems here and there, but overall, the Ultimate Edition, the version we were supposed to get in the first place, I think it's fantastic. We were sitting there and we didn't know. We did not know. We did not have any idea that Superman was going to die at the end of this film. And when that happened, we saw it preview night. It was midnight showing. It was a packed house. There wasn't a lot of talking going on throughout the movie while it was playing, but you could hear popcorn rustling, the odd whisper here and there, stuff like that. Just a little bit of ambient noise from the people around you. When Superman, not when he gets stabbed, when he's got the thing through his chest and he's dying, it was the same as usual. But when he actually fell to the ground and was dead, and it gets really sad, and Batman's there and Wonder Woman's there and Lois Lane is there, and it's sinking in. It's like, because we didn't know that was going to happen, and I did not predict in any way that would happen. The whole room, big cinema room, was silent for about 5 minutes, and I had my popcorn in a bag on my lap, and I remember realizing halfway through, after about 2 minutes of Superman being dead and what was going on screen, I realised that I'd been clutching my bag and I didn't move a muscle because I didn't want to make any noise, because it was so quiet in the cinema when he died. It was powerful. It was really powerful. And I remember thinking, that was so brave. And I know a lot of people will think it's way too soon for him to die. And yeah, it probably is, because he'd only been in one film beforehand. Lumps in the throat, holding back the tears, trying to be a man and watch this silly comic book movie and not give in, oh man. And then the funeral and the music and again, it was the cut version, so it didn't have as much as there is in this version. If it had been this version I saw in the cinema that night, I probably would have cried, man, because but then I will say, the bit at the very end where you see the dirt rising off his casket, I wish, and they probably just did it to stop little boys and girls from crying all over the world. They had to give them some hope being, the word, because, Superman hope. But yeah, I wish they hadn't have shown the dirt rising. I wish they had have just left the dirt on the casket and not had it move, but just end on that, so that you're looking at the dirt thinking, is it going to move? Is it going to move? But then they don't show you that it moves. But you'd still think to yourself, it probably does move, so there is hope. But showing it lift off, I remember even the first time I saw it, as emotional as I was while watching it, I do remember instantly thinking, I shouldn't have shown it move. Should have left people wondering. It's only going to be a year before the next film comes out, so you might as well just let people wonder. But I think it was a really brave move by Zack Snyder. If he is the guy who's responsible for that happening in the movie, it was his idea, maybe. I think it was a bold I think a bold is the right word to use. Very bold choice. And done very well. And the third act, I remember Henry Cavill in the interviews for the movie saying the third act is his favourite part of the film. I know people just say it's a big CGI fest, but it's amazing. That third act, once Doomsday turns up and you've got Superman, Wonder Woman and Batman all fighting this thing, it's a little bit forced with the moment where they keep hammering home the fact that the military people are like, the area that they're fighting in. Oh, it's unpopularized. You know, there's no one there, so don't worry, no one's going to get hurt after the big backlash after Man of Steel's third act. You know, they're kind of pushing it in your face a bit too much that they happen to be fighting in an empty area this time. So it's a little bit forced, but just you got to remember the amount of people involved in making a big movie like this. You've got to listen to the big bosses above you saying, this has got to be in the film, this has not got to be in the film. You've got to do what you've got to do and try and still get your vision in this little package I'm holding in my hand here. But yeah, number 2, I give to Dawn of Justice, a fine movie, and I don't care what anyone says. And then number 3, well, Wonder Woman, of course, great film. Just that scene alone, No Man's Land, absolutely amazing. The third act of Wonder Woman, I think, is probably what I don't like so much. It's got great moments in the third act. I'd agree with some people that the guy who was playing, God, what's his name? The God of War, you know. Damn it, I can't think of it. Screw it. Oh well. Anyway, number 3 goes to Wonder Woman, and 4th place, grudgingly, would go to Suicide Squad, just because it has to go somewhere, doesn't it? And Justice Friends is in last place because it's tat, it's gash, it's muff, it's absolute twaddle, faff, filth, splooge, jizz. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I don't think you did. Let me know if you did in the comment section. I have to awkwardly get up. This is all one take. I'm going to hit stop and put it straight on YouTube. So there's no cool edits where I just disappear and fade away. I have to get up and turn off the camera. So, hey, if you can zoom in, you can have my digital code for Dawn of Justice. You probably can't because that's shooting this in 1080p. Couldn't shoot it in 4K because on the Samsung Galaxy S8 there's only a 10-minute limit when shooting in 4K. So there you go. But yeah, if you're unfamiliar with the Hot Toys stuff, this is kind of what you can get, man. Just amazing figures. So yeah, take a good look around. Let me just pick this up and pan around here, give you a quick look at the collection. But you can see this in much more detail on the channel. If you're new to the channel, you go ahead and check out some of the stuff I got in this collection room. Pretty sweet. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your thoughts. I've just seen on the timer here the video is so far 56 minutes long. I wonder how long it's going to take to upload this. Probably quite a while. Anyway, I'll see you real soon, guys. For my regular subscribers, I mean, thanks for sticking with me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do let me know in the comments what you think. Thumb it up, thumb it down, interact. Don't mind what you do as long as you get involved. Alright, thanks for watching. See you later. Bye-bye.